Hi, I'm Darnell Cox with Living Lifestyle, and I'm here today with celebrity happiness coach Rob Mack. Thank you so much for being on our show.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
I'm very, very interested, as I'm sure a lot of my viewers are, that there's actually a happiness coach for celebrities.
Yes, and it's true. I think one of my favorite Jim Carrey quotes is, I want everybody to achieve all their dreams and become rich and famous so they can finally discover it's not the answer.
It's not the answer. So tell me a little bit about how you got started in this field, because you're very honest on your website. Yeah. Let's give our viewers your website first.
Yeah, so the website's coachrobmack.com, and then all social media platforms is Rob Mack Official.
Okay, so how did you get started becoming a celebrity?
Yeah, the long, hard, scenic route.
Okay.
I was like really unhappy. I feel like I was unhappy since the day I was born. I'm sure that wasn't true, but I was really unhappy. And as I continued to do well academically and athletically, I just continued to feel more and more depressed. And I eventually got to the place where I was experiencing suicidal ideation. So I was thinking about suicide almost every single day.
When did that start?
I would say probably 11 or 12.
Wow.
Yeah, and it went through my 20s. So eventually I got to a place where I began researching ways to kill myself. And, I first realized I needed to make sure I had access to ways. And so that narrowed down the options. And then I eventually decided I was going to slit my wrist. I still have the test marks on my wrist there.
Oh my God.
Yeah, because it was strange too, because for me, the objective circumstances and conditions of my life were really good. I mean, I made good money, I had a great job, I had a great girlfriend, I had great health, I had great family, I had good friends. But I was experiencing this existential angst, which means essentially I was really, really depressed at the idea of life itself.
Right.
That one day we would all die and that everybody you love would be stripped or ripped out of your arms.
Wow, and so how did you go from that low point in your life to then coaching people to have happiness?
Yeah, so when I actually decided to kill myself, I went and got a kitchen knife and I dug into my wrist. And in that very moment, I experienced like this inexplicable peace and happiness and love that I couldn't put a finger on. But I did think, well, I can postpone this happiness thing for like an hour while I look into this a little bit. And I began to research. And so that hour bled into a day, that day
so you just
bled
kept
into a
putting
week.
off the suicide.
Yeah, as I researched it. And then I began to discover so many people in the world were feeling this way.
Right.
And increasingly feeling this way since 1950. So we have 10 times the depression we did in 1950. And so despite life getting better in terms of objective conditions and circumstances, and people living longer as a result of like health advances and technology, people are feeling worse for it.
Right.
So over time, I discovered this program at Penn. It's a master's in applied positive psychology. It's all about the study and science of what makes life worth living.
Yeah. Many of you guys don't know, but I also have a master's in psychology from Pepperdine, but I've never heard of a master's in psychology in applied positive psychology, which is fascinating. So did you happen upon that major because you were having a little bit of a need to cure yourself?
Yeah, it was all very selfish. I mean, honestly, I just wanted to be happy, and that was it. And I just would read one thing, and that would lead me to something else. And eventually, I found this program had just been started at Penn that was all about the science of happiness and success. And I thought, man, that's wild that this program would come along just at a time when I needed it the most. So I entered that program, and I came out, and I opened my own private practice, and I started offering happiness services to people.
Yeah. Are you like coaching people, or are you trying to have them see the positive? We all have those Debbie Downer kind of friends,
Yes.
So are you coaching people like that to kind of see the positive, or to make actual changes in their life, or both?
Oh, it's a beautiful question. So both. I would say that in the beginning, it mostly is just about choosing the happier thought, right? So it is that, and it's all about choosing the happier activity, the happier conversation, the happier people and friends. And then over time, you find that changes begin to happen in an increasingly effortless way. And so all of a sudden, without so much effort, without so much time and energy, things change, situations shift, conditions and circumstances improve on their own, right? So that's part of the science. Then you get to a place where you begin to not just focus on practicing the better feeling story in your head, but also you begin to drop thought altogether when you realize that this positive thinking thing is great, and yet still it's a burden in and of itself. Like, it can be tiresome, it can be exhausting, and people get all kind of like worried and concerned that if they're not thinking positively all the time, that their life is going to go badly in some
Right.
big way. And you eventually come to a realization that you can just stop thinking altogether, simply be present, enjoy your own presence, and you can experience a deeper, more abiding, unconditional, limitless
Right.
peace, love, and joy.
Isn't that funny how, like, you know, even in yoga or meditation or just in any sort of stress release, that being present without worrying about, you know, the shit that you did
Yeah, right. Or yesterday.
or
an hour ago.
yesterday or what's, you know, the obstacles that are coming up, but just being in that moment seems to be a tiny bit of a cure-all in a lot of different situations. And now also we're finding out in happiness, just being in that moment, not worrying about so much what's going to take place next or what you did, you know, to mess
Yes.
up. So is that a lot of it? Is there meditation involved, or is it just like teaching people to just have that presence of in that moment?
Oh, it's a beautiful question. I'd say what you said is perfectly, it's so eloquent and it's perfectly stated. Presence, meditation, mindfulness, the way I think about them, they're all very similar. And for me, I think if you just focused on being present, that in of itself is meditation, is mindfulness,
is,
right?
yeah.
There's also something I call micro-meditation. So micro-meditation is simply one breath you take for the simple joy of that breath, simply for joy's sake alone, and you let your thoughts go, okay? And so you do it first thing in the morning, and then throughout the day, as often you can
Can you
possibly
give us an
remember.
example?
Yes, yes. So it's
I need
just
okay, so you're just in the morning when you wake up.
first thing I do
Uh-huh.
is simply enjoy my own breath. So it's just
And are you closing your eyes when you're doing
you can
that?
close your eyes if you want. In the beginning,
Okay.
it's easier if you close your eyes,
Uh-huh.
and you're simply breathing in and breathing out, and your only intention is to enjoy that single breath as though it's the last breath you ever take on earth, and you never know what it could be. So every single morning, that's it. And you go about your day.
There is something about that that makes you smile.
Yes, it's
I
effortless,
don't know
really.
why that is. Yeah.
Because your mind is quiet. And that
Right.
smile is actually your true nature. That smile, that happiness is your true nature when it's not covered up by so much thinking.
Right.
So if you just do it first thing in the morning, because that's when your brain is in this alpha theta wave state, that's when it's easiest.
Okay.
But then when you're in the shower, when you're eating, when you're in a conversation, you do it again and again and again, only for the point and purpose of enjoying it. If you try to get good at it, that's going to be the one thing that prevents you from
Yeah.
getting good at it.
Right.
Right?
It's like people that get very frustrated with meditation. Some people say, they just can't
Yeah.
meditate. Well, yeah. So it's just not trying to be good at meditation, but just enjoying the fact that you're alive.
Yeah.
That you're basically a breathing.
Yeah, enjoy the breath.
being.
Yeah, and you know, it's interesting. I think it was running that kind of brought me to that realization. Sometimes we can only appreciate things when we don't have a lot of it or it's almost gone.
Right.
I would run and be out of breath, and I would sit down when I was done running, and
Yeah.
it's so good to just sit here and breathe. And I realized, why can't I have this experience of like perfect peace and non-thought
Right.
when I'm doing everything else in my life?
Right.
What do
Just
you
like
think?
our breath is, it's part of the autonomic nervous system. We don't really think about breathing, and so what you're trying to get your clients to is not really have to think about happiness. It just becomes a part of that autonomic
Beautiful.
system.
Exactly. So one thing you can do is you can simply sit, and then I don't want you to think the next thought. Wait and see if you can hear the next thought and not think the next thought. So if you just close your eyes and ask yourself, what is my next thought? And then wait to hear it. Try to listen for it. Often there's a little break in the incessant, obsessive compulsive thinking that goes on in the mind. Another tip and trick is to actually focus more on your five senses. And so no matter what you're doing, try to be
Like
really...
now I can hear the helicopter outside.
Exactly. So there's a saying in Zen, it's only painful to wash the dishes when you're not washing the dishes. What they're saying. It's only painful to wash the dishes when your mind is distracted. If you're actually feeling the warm water, the cool water, and you're touching the dishes, there's nothing there but gratitude and peace and happiness. It's nothing else, right? And that's true
That's
with
so
everything.
interesting.
With
So
everything.
be aware of all of your senses when you're doing something,
Yeah.
which probably grounds you a little bit more and makes you more present.
100%.
Right.
And that's the key, right? So unitasking is just another little hack. Just do one thing at a time. No matter what you're doing, do one thing. And remember that thinking counts as one thing.
Unitasking.
Thinking counts as one thing. So if you're walking, just walk. Don't think. If you're Washing your hands, wash your hands. Don't think. Just do what you can to fully, more deeply enjoy. If you really just focus on trying to enjoy everything and everybody more deeply, just for the joy alone, you discover your mind is a lot quieter. It's just like, can I really be here and fully take you in? Right?
And I think the majority of people don't do that. When they're sitting there talking with somebody and they're thinking of a zillion things, they're thinking of their grocery list, you know, and
Totally.
the problems they're having with their kids, and it just becomes too much.
You nailed it. And that's one of the realizations I had, was that, like, what I think of as an opportunity to be happy in the future, the car, the wife, the kids, the money, the health, is actually an obstacle to being happy right now. Like, the future doesn't hold any more opportunity for me to be happy than the present moment. In fact, the future holds zero opportunity for me to be happy because it's not in my hands.
Yeah.
I can't control. The only thing that's in my hands is the present moment right now. And the only reason we want to accomplish anything or achieve anything or acquire anything is because we think we'll feel happier for having had it.
Yes.
Right? But you can experience that, you do experience that only now. You never experience that in the future, because when you get in the future, you take that same future-oriented mindset with you, and you're like, oh,
yeah.
well, you know, I got the Maserati, now I need the Rolls.
Yes,
It's like, now I
exactly.
got the Rolls, now I need the bigger house. It's endless. It's
Right.
endless. So we're not really in this life because we want to achieve, accomplish, or acquire things, although we think that's why. We're
Right.
in it because we want to experience something that we call happiness.
That's like that whole grass is always greener on the other
Yes.
side, which is why there's so many of these like kids that are just struggling these days because of social media and comparing themselves to other people. And if I could only look like that, or if I can only have, you know, that car or that makeup line or this endorsement or you know, and the numbers, and it just becomes you know, something that causes them great distress.
Oh, you nailed it. Like, my entire practice, and I love my clients, I absolutely love my clients, and my entire practice is full of people whose bank accounts and pockets are full of money and their hearts are full of nothing but misery.
Yeah.
You know, and we talk every single day about the ways in which that which they've sought out, that which they've prayed for that they now have, that which they want to achieve, cannot possibly ever give them the peace and satisfaction and the happiness that they're after.
Yeah.
You know, and you'd think that once you made the first 50 million, you'd start to have that realization. But for lots of folks, it, for them, indicates they need to make 100 million.
Exactly.
And then 200 million.
That's why, you know, there's these celebrities that end up killing themselves. Like, I am a giant fan of Anthony Bourdain.
Yes.
Like, one of my probably favorite, I've never missed an episode. I still won't delete them off of my television because then I feel like, oh,
Yeah.
it's kind of over. But I always thought that is a absolute dream job to do that. And it wasn't enough. It just wasn't enough.
You nailed it. Robin Williams, same thing. Kate Spade. You know,
Yeah.
it's interesting because so 2 decades ago, my friend and college roommate in undergrad killed himself, committed suicide, and he was an extremely, you know, a really great-looking guy. You know, he was always the social guy. He was the guy I wanted. When I was his roommate, I wanted to be him.
Yeah.
You know, and it's interesting because he didn't feel that way. You know, he wasn't happy.
Rob and I spoke a bit about this prior to filming, so I don't want anybody to comment on, you had no reaction, but we
Yeah.
spoke about this just before, and
Yeah.
what an awful
Yeah,
tragedy.
And I think part of the challenging opportunity with happiness is a deep, true discovery that when you meditate deeply enough, when you're present deeply enough, you realize that happiness isn't something that you think or that you do. It's just what you are. Okay, and that's
Right.
true of everybody.
Right.
And that this one life that I think I have, I don't have life. I am life. I don't have a life. I am life. That realization, recognition, allows you to know that anybody and everybody who dies doesn't die. There's an infinite, eternal life that we all share that just continues on.
Right.
And so for me, there's not really any sadness about any of that. I mean, honestly, there's not. You know, I don't feel the loss that I would have 20 years ago because I'm not under the illusion that we're just this physical body.
Right.
I mean, it's not possible for us just to be this physical body. The physical body changes your entire life.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's also the beautiful thing about happiness, is that happiness for me is equivalent to enlightenment, meaning that you begin to discover deeper truths that come through you.
It becomes like a spiritual
It is.
thing.
It's the highest spiritual practice, in my opinion.
Yeah.
It's the highest spiritual practice because it leads you to all the other insights.
Right.
Yes.
I do think there are people, though, that, you know, they don't have the resources to reach out to to go to a therapist or a psychiatrist. And I do think we're going to put the suicide helpline number down there.
The beautiful thing is, you don't need to know a whole lot. You don't need to, in fact, you already know enough. If people have already listened to this interview, there is way more here than they even need to use. If you just took something as simple as micro meditations, or you just took something as simple as, let me practice enjoying my breath and blotting the world out for a while, that in of itself would lead you all the way home.
And just using those senses, every task that you're doing, realize your 5 senses, because that's what brings you back to grounding and to
that will lead you all the way home to happiness. So there's plenty enough already. We just want to apply what we know.
Yeah, and hopefully, if we've helped one person by this video, we've done good.
I feel uplifted by it.
I'm totally, just from the breath alone, it made me smile.
I love that.
And I think that that's a big part of who you are, is, from coming from such a place of misery in your life. When I first met you, you made me smile. There's something about you that's very uplifting and very motivating.
Well, it takes light to recognize light, so that is a direct reflection of you. It is. And I feel that very much that way with you, and that's one of the reasons that I was so excited about talking to you and doing this show. I mean, honestly, is because, it's a selfish thing, really, just to share the light.
Right.
And I love you sharing the light, and I appreciate you sharing the light, and I appreciate you having me on and just being who you are and doing what you do.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
So finding peace, love, and happiness from the inside out, that's a really good way to live young.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.